everyone, I'm Jean with Waldorf-Inspired Learning, and today I want to share with you some inspiration and ideas for making 4 different types of lanterns. We have some paper lanterns, glass lanterns, a tin can lantern, this one, and I'm going to show you how to make a paper mache lantern with a balloon. So let's get started. These are really fun to make. They make great decorations on your dining room table or for Thanksgiving. And they're also really fun to light and carry around at dark outside with your children on a lantern walk. So we'll start today with the paper lanterns. The paper lanterns are really gorgeous and they can be made with any kind of heavy duty paper. So this is made out of construction paper. You can also use watercolor paper, and sometimes we have lots of watercolor paintings sitting around that can be made into lanterns if you want to choose to do that. The paper lanterns have a couple of different steps to them, and their size is determined by the bottom. So you could choose, first you want to decide if you're going to make a square lantern or a round lantern, and then you'll need to have, for the round lanterns you can use a variety of lids. This is from a tin can, or a piece of cardboard insert, and this is for the square lantern. And then the way you determine the size is by measuring how it would fit all the way around its bottom with a little bit of extra to seal the edge. So this, you just want to be sure if you use construction paper that you get the 11 by 17 size instead of the 8.5 by 11 size, because that won't be long enough to wrap all the way around. So here's an 11 by 17 piece of construction paper, and you won't need it to be this tall, nor will you need it to be this round. So you're going to cut it, actually, first you're going to determine how long you need it to be by the size of your bottom piece. So you would simply measure around the edge, leaving about 1 inch of overlap, and then you can just mark it on here and you would cut the paper to that size. You'll also end up cutting a little bit of a strip off the top, and you can use that for a handle. It's usually about 3 inches, and if you get 1.5 inches off the top, then you can fold that in half and in half again, and it makes quite a sturdy handle for your paper lantern. I'm going to show you a few ways to decorate these paper lanterns, and the first is, well, they all involve cutting a shape out. So the first would be to cut the shapes in different sizes. This is a star, so you draw the shape that you want, and then you can cut it out. I left this one just drawn because especially children need a little bit of help getting this started. So you might be able to just stick your scissors in and get the cutout started. Some children, if they're old enough, are able to do that. Others, that's a little bit tricky. And you might need to do it for them. So once you get your shape cut out, you simply need to take a piece of colored tissue paper, works really well, and you put it behind, you glue it behind the hole. Now all the decorating needs to be done when the paper is still flat before you make it into its shape. And this is where then the light is going to shine through. Another option, well, first I'll show you, that's how this one was made. So all those shapes were cut out of the paper. This is watercolor paper, and then tissue paper glued behind them. Another option, though, is to make a window, and then you can either put a large piece of tissue paper, glue the tissue paper behind it, and on the tissue paper you can glue other shapes all over the tissue paper, however you want it to be. Or you could use for this pressed leaves. So I have one that I've pressed between 2 pieces of waxed paper, and that's something that also makes a really nice image in your window, like that. Okay, remember about when you are creating designs is that it's really about shapes and silhouettes, because once it's dark outside, color becomes very subtle or is not seen at all. Young children often will want to color with crayons on their pieces of paper, but it's important to remind them that once it's dark out, they're not going to see that any longer. What they're going to see are the shapes shining through as a result of the candle. So I'm going to walk you through the steps of making a pressed leaf lantern. This one I've gotten started already, and I simply took two pieces, or really one long strip of wax paper, and folded it in half. And then in the same fashion, I cut this to fit this particular bottom by measuring along the bottom with the lid, the tin, and then trimming it up. And these leaves I had put into my flower press a few weeks ago, so I have a variety of leaves to choose from in making this lantern. So I created the design. After I trimmed the paper to the right size, I created the design that I wanted, and then I ironed it on a really light setting. And it becomes much thicker when you do that and not as flimsy as this wax paper. And then it's important to put two strips of paper along the top and the bottom. Not only is it a pretty visual frame, but it also adds some strength to your lantern. So I've glued one on already. And this is a 1-inch strip of paper that I simply folded in half. And then I'm going to put it over the edge. So this one I can measure out to the right length and trim it. And then I'm going to take a glue stick and run some glue along it, and then I'll glue it right on there. The tricky part about paper lanterns, I think, is the bottom. So I want to show you something that I've learned over the years that really helps. So if you take your shape, and you can use a yogurt lid or any kind of plastic lid, a tin that you've cut out, but it really helps to have an additional piece of paper that's a little bit larger. So I cut this circle a little larger than my bottom, and then I traced the bottom on it so that I could cut tabs, cut up to that line all the way around. And those tabs then are going to get glued not only to the bottom, but to the lantern frame itself. So what I will do is take some glue, and I'm just using regular glue, take some glue and put it all over the flattest side of this lantern, of this lantern bottom, on both the extra paper as well as on the tin, and then just press that in. After that, the next step is to glue these tabs up by running a bead of glue all the way around the edge of the lid, like so, and pressing the tabs so that they glue to the lid. And then I'm not going to do this all the way around, but I just want to show you the final step then is to run a bead of glue along the edge of this lantern and the outside edge of this paper, and then glue that together. Now this is the fiddliest part, and it often takes 4 hands in order to make that work, and you'll need to hold it for a little while for it to begin to seal. So that is our pressed leaf lantern, and they turn out really beautifully. Handles on all of these lanterns, as I said, they can be made from the construction paper itself, folded over a couple of times to be sturdier. They can also be made from wires, or yarn sometimes works for the lighter lanterns. Here we go with, I just want to show you now the glass lanterns. And these are actually the simplest lanterns to make. The tissue paper covered glass is really easy for young children. And all you need for this are some scraps of different colored tissue paper, torn tissue paper, and some watered down glue. So this glue has it's about half glue, half water. It's a mixture. I've stirred it up, and you simply paint this onto the glass jar and then press your tissue paper on top. And then you can layer them, and that makes, when the light shines inside of it, it makes for a really interesting look where the colors overlap. There are lots of ways to do these glass lanterns. This is pressed leaves, and then I glued those on first and then took some torn tissue paper, all yellow, and made another layer over the outside. You don't have to add that second layer. This one is simply stars, and the translucent nature is from the glue itself after it's dried. This one has pressed leaves with white covering it. You can cut out shapes like this one, and you can just use a variety, use multiples of one shape, like these circles. Let's see if I can show you that a little bit better. Okay, those are the glass lanterns, and they work best with wire handles. You wrap the handle around them because of the lip. It will hold, so then you just loop over the handle. Now we make lanterns to carry as well as lanterns to create a path for us to walk through the woods, which is really, really magical. And I'll share a little bit more about that shortly. Just two other lanterns that I want to show you. This is the tin can lantern, and these are really fun to make too. You would take a marker and draw your design on the outside of it, and after you've done that, and it can be a line drawing, after you've done that, you fill it with water and freeze it. So this would need to freeze for overnight or a day or two until it's totally frozen inside, so that when you take it out, you don't bend the can when you're hammering on it. So you use a towel to lay this on, and you need a hammer and a couple of nails, and you simply hammer a hole, create a hole about every 1/4 of an inch all the way around your design. This is a spiral. And then when you're finished with that, you can simply set this in the sink to dry. Now it is important to remember that if you want a handle on this, that you hammer 2 holes for the wire to go through. So that's a tin can lantern. And now for our final one, this is a paper mache lantern that's made with a balloon. So again, using the watered down glue, you blow up the balloon first and then paint your glue on it. Sometimes it's easier to hold it like this. You paint your glue on and then take a piece of tissue paper and put it on. It helps to add a little bit more glue on top to get your edges all smooth. And you simply fill the whole balloon this way. Now this design requires more than 1 layer, so at least 2 layers, sometimes even 3. And I like to use colors on the bottom layer, but then cover it with white as the final layer, because it just makes it for a really pretty glow in the dark. Once you've filled, you want to fill all the way up to about this far on your balloon, and then hang it up to dry. So you would hang it, and it needs to dry probably for, sometimes it takes a week. It depends on the weather. But you want it to dry fully, and then you pop the balloon. And after you've popped the balloon, you simply trim around the top edge and do a couple of hole punches so that you can get your handle through it. All right, so those are our 4 types of lanterns. One other thing I just want to share, if you do want to set out a path to walk through the woods, it's really nice to have it lit, and that would require making a lot of lanterns. So one way to supplement your lanterns is by making paper bag luminaries. And what I've done with the paper bags is simply, it's good to trim them off a little bit or fold them down because they're so tall. These are just the paper sandwich bags. And I've taken this star punch and So it's easy. I just trimmed the top off with my handy paper cutter, and I took the star punch and made this design because that's where the light is going to shine through. And then you simply put some sand in the bottom of these bags and put your tea light in it. So the tea light, I think, is the easiest way to light all the lanterns. And as long as you have a long stick or an implement, you can get it into the center of the lantern and just have a little loop of masking tape or duct tape on the bottom for it to stick. These can be set in the sand for the paper bag luminaries. And then these can be interspersed with these lanterns to line your path and make it a nice path through the woods. One other idea I came up with last year was to make these glass jar sleeves. And these are I made this one out of kite paper, but decorated with tissue paper, but you can also make them out of tissue paper. And they create temporary lanterns. So you simply slide it on a jar and put a tea light in the bottom and set this out along the path. And at the end of the festival, you can remove the jar and reuse or recycle these, and then just simply flatten the sleeves and have a collection of them for the next year. So I kept these all, it's a little bit hard to see probably, but this one just has a lot of stars on it. So I've kept these all from year to year, and then I just start gathering glass jars so that I can use those to create the path. So that is what I wanted to share with you today, and I hope you enjoy making your lanterns, whether you choose to make paper or glass or tin can or paper mache lanterns this fall. I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and your children making them. With children, as I said, I would start with the very simplest ones, which are the glass ones with tissue paper. And I've been at many a lantern making session in preparation for a festival where the children have all gone off to play and the moms are still sitting around the table crafting away at their lanterns. So they really are a lot of fun to make, and once you start, you won't want to stop. So happy lantern making. Bye.